Big news today, Bill O'Reilly out at Fox. We will take a look at the situation with our panel of attorneys, plus some legal entanglements involving media personalities Glen, Beck, and Alex Jones. Then Ivanka Trump still owns her company, even though she now works at the White House. That company does business in a whole lot of countries, and Ivanka will be in touch with a whole lot of foreign leaders. Could that lead to lots of trouble for the first daughter? Also, one of the few people who predicted Donald Trump would win is now predicting how he could get impeached. We sat down with that very professor. That interview coming up. Evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for spending part of your Wednesday evening with us. Well, it was a busy Wednesday as we start this evening in the world of media. Fox News has dropped Bill O'Reilly. O'Reilly was the top-rated host in cable news and the linchpin of Fox's primetime lineup. Well, that ends his 21-year stint at Fox. This, of course, follows the New York Times scathing report saying $13 million had been doled out to women saying that they had been harassed by the factor. After that, more than 50 sponsors bailed on the O'Reilly show, and just this week, an African-American woman alleged that he had harassed her with racially charged language a decade ago. 21st Century Fox has issued a statement, and here is part of it. After a thorough and careful review of the allegations, the company and Bill O'Reilly have agreed that Bill O'Reilly will not be returning to the Fox News channel. Now, it seems like the writing was on the wall that after Fox hired high-powered law firm Paul, Weiss & Rifkin to investigate O'Reilly, Roger Ailes, as many of you remember, was gone soon after that very same firm started a probe into his behavior. Let's bring in our panel tonight. Mayo Bartlett, an attorney at the law offices of Mayo Bartlett PLLC and a former chief of the Bias Crimes Unit at the Westchester County DA's office, and Mark Furnish, adjunct professor at the Elizabeth Haub School of Law at Pace University. He's argued, well, with everyone, but including before the U.S. Supreme Court. All right, guys, was this about what we already know, money? Was this about money and something that they were trying to secure in Europe with Sky News? Was this about what we don't know, possibly even more cases that are coming down the pipe?
I think it's a combination of things, and then you also have to look at Donald Trump in particular is a person who won under the Republican brand, but was not traditionally a Republican, and would have under most years would have had a difficult time based upon his multiple marriages and other things that would have hounded him ethically and in terms of his morality. Fox News is protecting its brand. And when you look at the brand is much more than any one individual. It's more than Megyn Kelly, more even than Bill O'Reilly, despite his popularity being the pinnacle of basically in his field. When you look at what they're doing, number one, they're taking a proactive stance at this stage. Now, albeit it's a bit late, but it does allow them some plausible deniability in terms of future claims that may come up.
I want to read the statement, Mark, from O'Reilly. Again, he was on vacation that was planned a while ago.
Self-imposed exile.
Yes, but now the permanent variety. This is what he had to say. It was tremendously disheartening that we part ways due to completely unfounded claims. But that is the unfortunate reality many of us in the public eye must live with today. And there's more to it, but the gist of it. When he says unfounded, there were both settlements that the company did and that he also did on his own. Moreover, there were audio tapes in more than one instance where he certainly said lewd and, at least according to the woman, unwanted conversations that were directed to her, and she is subordinate of his. There are multiple ones of these, at least 6 different allegations that were out there, at least 6 different ones that were already settled, and now there was even threats and even innuendo that there might have been more that the law firm has uncovered. Was the writing on the wall once the Times story came out, or did something else trigger finally him getting canned?
I really don't know. I suspect it's the latter. We discussed this on here last week. The man's ratings are higher than they've ever been. He still is a cash cow for the network.
$400 million in the last 2 years he's generated for the firm.
And
for the company.
a lot of the advertising revenue has been pulled from his show but reallocated into other Fox time slots. And moreover, the nature of these allegations, while very salacious, and I'm stereotyping here, would not necessarily, you wouldn't think necessarily they would be that offensive to the stereotypical Fox viewer.
Well, the one thing that they also found, and this not legal, but this more, at least in my world, is when Megyn Kelly left, and she had become, if not by ratings, but many would have considered almost the star of the network at a certain point, the ratings didn't take a hit. Now, is that because of the unending news cycle the current president generates on a daily basis? Is this a temporary hiccup in that Tucker Carlson is actually now going to, we've learned today, take over the slot that he's in? Or, you know, is everybody replaceable at Fox? And maybe that's what they took away.
I don't know. I think it's something behind the scenes with Murdoch's two kids who run the place. And O'Reilly, I think there's something we're probably not privy to, because these allegations have been going on for a long time. They've been dogging the network and O'Reilly for quite a long time. You don't think that that alone would be the tipping point?
And again, from my end, guys, this is as much about a major acquisition that we thought was off of the table. Remember when all the phone hacking had happened in the British case? And obviously one of, the principal tabloid that Rupert Murdoch owned in England. And it turns out his surrogates were part and parcel with the thing. They were at that moment in the actual stages of acquiring Sky, which was one of the biggest distributors in England right now. That fell apart. They have a chance now to do it once again, and if this is hanging over their heads once again about another salacious scandal that they're not dealing with, or aiding and abetting an alleged harasser or abuser, that would maybe complicate. So there's a lot of moving factors.
Why do we think it would cloud that deal, though? I mean, this is their most marketable commodity.
It is, but if they believe that after Roger Ailes, nothing really changed as a consequence of this, and Parliament has to approve this, it would complicate it as well. Absolutely.
That makes sense.
Well, we get to now a former colleague of O'Reilly's at Fox, one Glen Beck. He's countersuing a former host at his media company, The Blaze. Tomi Lahren says that her show was pulled off the air after she went on The View and said that she is not opposed to abortion. Here it is.
I'm pro-choice, and here's why. I am a constitutional, someone that loves the Constitution. I am someone that's for limited government, and so I can't sit here and be a hypocrite and say I'm for limited government, but I think that the government should decide what women do with their bodies.
Now, Laren's wrongful termination suit also claims The Blaze orchestrated a public smear campaign against her and blocked her from her own Facebook page. Beck and The Blaze's suit says she still works for the company and is still being paid by the company. It also says she has access to her social media account, and it says The Blaze has had, quote, employment issues with her for well over a year, and because of that, they weren't going to renew her contract come September. In terms of what you can and can't say if it's not consistent with the brand. First of all, they're not saying it's the reason mail, but if they're saying, yeah, we terminated her because we have a brand associated with Blaze. We're highly conservative, and one of the basic tenets that we are pro-life, pro-gun, pro-fill in the blank. We can't have one of our spokespeople going off message. Would they have cause here for terminating her, or at least taking her off the air, just because they have a right to disagree with what she says?
It's all going to be specific to whether she has a contract and what that contract says. And if the employment contract may say that your Facebook page isn't yours, that we own the rights to that. There are record company contracts that say that they can take all of your music and suppress it and not allow you ever to print a record, and they can print it or destroy it at their will. So it depends on what the contract says. But we've seen it time and time again where there are morality clauses that say, for instance, with maybe Colin Kaepernick, if you engage in, in one knee during the national anthem, it may or may not subject you to the possibility of losing your employment. You have it all throughout entertainment law, but also in employment in general. Most people do not have the protection of an employment contract. And even if they do, with her having it, though, generally they tend to be heavily weighted toward the employer.
Right. And for the record, their countersuit says she's currently employed there. This is about their not renewing her contract prospectively in September 2017. And what our viewers should understand, it seems obvious, but the First Amendment prohibits the government from suppressing speech. It doesn't prohibit a private employer from doing so.
Well, I think it's an important point you make. Right. I'm not sure everybody realizes that in terms of where that right starts and stops, and there are limitations.
So
now,
in the absence of something in the employment contract, they're perfectly within their rights to say, you don't represent the brand, get out of here.
If it all comes down to renewing a contract or not, they have that right. You can't compel someone to keep someone. Exactly. All right. Not
That's a
this
good
last
gig,
one, which
Rich.
is
Come on,
fascinating.
man.
Absolutely. Alex Jones. He's the guy behind InfoWars. And if you still know what that is, that's the site that
I
has
don't know
spread
what it is.
filth saying the U.S. government was involved in the 9/11 attacks. The Sandy Hook school shooting was an inside job to help push for more gun control laws. And trust me, that's just the tip of where they've gone. But Jones's attorney now says this was all an act. It was all performance art. Well, that came out during a custody battle Jones is wrapped up in. Jones also spread that Pizzagate story. Remember that one that said Hillary Clinton and John Podesta ran a child sex slavery ring in the basement of a D.C. pizza place? Well, that actually led to a gunman visiting the place to investigate and free the kids. He was arrested, armed. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Now, Jones apologized for spreading the Pizzagate story. Could his attorney's statements about his performance art actually potentially insulate him from possible lawsuits about that or other things? Or in many ways, Mark, could it be saying you knowingly spread lies? And just because you're calling it performance art doesn't give you basically liberty to spread knowingly falsehoods.
Well, I think the implicit premise is that Howard Stern was in the performance art business too. When you're a shock jock, that's what you do. I mean, nobody would take this seriously.
People took this very seriously, as evidenced by the guy who brought a gun to the place.
He doesn't purport to be a legitimate journalist.
Yes,
He's no more legitimate than Rush Limbaugh, than Howard Stern, than all of these people.
Well, I'm sorry, one second, though. The President of the United States, I have to finish, so you may know this, they don't.
I got it.
Multiple times, the President of the United States, as a candidate, went on InfoWars with said Alex Jones. There they are, okay? And he trotted out those falsehoods in his own name. People clearly believe, and you can't say, well, he's just the president.
But that's because people are idiots. When we talk about fake news, this is why we have a First Amendment and a marketplace of ideals. There's some responsibility to the consumer to check and differentiate what's fact from
Where's the responsibility to the purveyor?
By reading and making up your own
Mark.
mind. He doesn't look. We talked about what
He's
defamation.
Stating this as fact.
No, it has to be fighting words and immediate incitement. Nobody told the consumer to pick up a gun and go down there and take the law into his own hands. There's a responsibility of a citizenry and electorate to be informed and to police their own behavior.
Okay, but
any idiot who believes this stuff uncritically deserves what they get.
As we've said in this program, the Inquirer has been sued and the Inquirer has lost. And everybody acknowledges that Bigfoot didn't run away.
Well, we don't know
you know, okay, fair enough.
Bigfoot
Okay,
probably didn't sue
fair enough.
on libel grounds.
My point being, Mayo, words do have consequences under law.
Absolutely. And if he were to yell fire in the theater, then you would. Totally different. Well, if you were to yell fire in the theater, you have liability. And here, there's even a question. There's even a question as to when President Trump was a candidate and he was at his rallies, and those who chose to voice and exercise their First Amendment right to dissent were attacked. He somehow would suggest that if someone were to get arrested, he would pay their bills. Well, you know, now you're starting to approach the gray line as to whether you're inciting people to violence.
That is closer, I agree.
These are all questions you have to look at.
But
and
what's
again,
more dangerous if you were his attorney?
Who, this Jones?
Yeah, to say, wait a minute, he's just a performer. He doesn't believe in what he says, or he believed it to be true when he said it.
But let's contextualize this, though. This is in the context of a child custody hearing.
Fair enough.
What he says.
Those words and what they testify can apply if there is timeout. If that pizza place in D.C., and they will, I believe, bring a lawsuit.
They
okay?
already have.
Right. And they enjoin him. If he knowingly spread falsehoods about them because he was a performance artist, that's something different.
I don't think it
here,
bears
though,
on
is
his
that
fitness as a parent. That's what this is about.
well, but the lawyer is making the statement. He's not making the statement. If he made the statement himself, then it's very different. If the lawyer's
he
making,
also says he's a performance artist.
well, he can say that. But if the lawyer is making the statement, it's different than he making the statement. If he's actually making the statement himself, then you can attribute those statements directly to him. Right now, it's hearsay. That's not in any official documents.
No, he's taken this position in a court proceeding in a child custody case. Look, contextualize this. Howard Stern very
But
controversial.
Howard makes no pretense.
Okay? I'm sure. How do
But
we
he
know
makes
what?
no pretense that he's a serious journalist.
Well, he does now on Sirius XM. His interviews are lauded universally with high-profile
And you
figures
still
as
are
being
looking
the
at-
most penetrating interviewer
but he's
there
also
is.
talking about stories and doing phony phone calls. This guy is purporting to tell
Well,
stories.
we should have, I mean, just because
that-
you're one of the jerky boys doesn't mean you're a bad parent. I mean, that's what this is
I'm
about.
not making any judgment
But
on
that's
him
all
as a
this is
parent.
about.
No, but my point is, I'm conflating this
woman's-
intentionally
his
to say his now assertion that we should never have believed anything he said, but yet nonetheless, that would mean you've been spreading falsehoods that you've pretended to be factual. We've already seen one incident where somebody could have gotten killed. But more than that, you've defamed people's
He's
lives.
not responsible for that.
you
There's
can
no
show-
causal connection between what he says. He didn't say to somebody like
I'm
Mayo
sorry, he's
said.
defaming people's lives.
He
If you
didn't
can
say
show that he
go
actually-
pick up a gun and investigate that. The Trump case is closer because he says throw him out of here and I'll pay
I'm
for him.
already
To
over.
Mark's
I
point-
apologize, but here's my specific question, Mayo, and then I got to hit a break. So, don't you guys do the lawyer answers here? If I'm a family at Sandy Hook, and I lost a child, and this piece of garbage said repeatedly that this was an inside job, not the act of that madman who killed him with an AR-15, and this is all supposedly some ruse, defaming the memory of my child here for some gun control thing. Or I'm a 9/11. I lost a loved one on 9/11 here, and he said it was all an inside job at the government and everything else. And now he says, oh, I know I said that, and I said you guys have to believe this because this is what they're afraid to tell you, but I was all doing it as, entertainment. If he says that now, don't I have, whether it's slander or whether it's defamation, don't I have any legal recourse?
Not in my opinion. In my opinion, that he's speaking and he's basically voicing his opinion, and
It's
there's
opinion,
no,
It's not fact.
All right.
and there's no causal connection.
Come on.
Well,
this is the First Amendment.
I say bully to you.
This,
All
you know what?
Coming up next, will Ivanka Trump's business ties get her tied up in legal problems now that she's working at the White House? Stay with us.